The slap echoed through the airport terminal like thunder. Natalie Cross, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, crumpled to the marble floor, blood trickling from her split lip. "Please don't hit me, I'm already hurt," she whispered, her designer suit torn, her dignity shattered. That's when Mark Davis stepped forward, a single dad in worn jeans who would change everything. Dear viewers, stay with me until the end of this incredible story and comment your city below so I can see how far our story has traveled today. The international terminal at Chicago O'Hare was packed with the usual chaos of delayed flights and weary travelers, but nothing could have prepared the crowd for what happened at Gate B17 that rainy November evening. Natalie Cross had built her reputation as the youngest female CEO in the pharmaceutical industry, a woman who could negotiate billion-dollar deals before breakfast and fire executives without blinking. But now she was on her knees, her Hermes blazer ripped at the shoulder, her usually perfect auburn hair tangled and wild. "You think you can just walk away from this deal?" Richard Blackwood's voice boomed across the terminal. The man standing over her was supposed to be her business partner, the one person her late father had trusted to guide the company forward. Instead, he'd become her tormentor, the architect of a scheme that would have sold her life along with her shares. "You signed the preliminary agreements, Natalie. You can't back out now." His hand rose again, and Natalie instinctively raised her arms to protect her face. The bruise on her cheekbone was already purple from their confrontation in the parking garage an hour earlier. She'd tried to escape, to catch a flight anywhere, but Richard had followed her, determined to force her compliance. "Please," she gasped, tasting copper in her mouth. "Richard, people are watching. Let them watch." He grabbed her wrist, yanking her to her feet with such force that she stumbled in her Louboutin heels. "Maybe public humiliation will teach you what happens when you cross me." The crowd had formed a semicircle around them, phones raised, recording every second of her degradation. Not one person stepped forward. They all knew who she was. Her face had been on Forbes, on CNN, on every business magazine cover. The ice queen of pharmaceuticals, they called her. The woman who'd refused to lower drug prices even when Congress demanded it. The CEO who'd laid off thousands without a second thought. Maybe they thought she deserved this. Richard's grip tightened on her wrist until she cried out. "You're going to call your board right now," he hissed, his breath hot against her ear. "You're going to tell them you accept the marriage arrangement with the Sakamoto heir. You're going to smile at the wedding, sign over your controlling shares as agreed, and disappear to whatever corner of the world they ship you to. Understood?" "I won't," Natalie started, but his free hand struck her again, this time catching her ribs. She doubled over, gasping, "Daddy, why is that man hurting that lady?" The small voice cut through the noise like a blade. A little girl, no more than 6, stood 10 feet away, her hand clasped in her father's. She wore a pink unicorn backpack and light-up sneakers, her dark pigtails bouncing as she tried to pull her father forward. "Lily, stay back," the man said quietly, but his eyes never left Richard. Mark Davis didn't look like a hero. His carpenter's hands were rough, his flannel shirt had seen better days, and his work boots were scuffed from years of construction sites. He was returning from his mother's funeral in Denver, exhausted and emotionally drained, with only his daughter and a duffel bag of memories. The last thing he needed was trouble. But Lily's question hung in the air, and Mark saw what the crowd refused to see. Not a CEO, not a billionaire, but a woman in pain, afraid, alone. "Sir," Mark said, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who'd commanded troops in Afghanistan, though Richard couldn't know that. "Let her go." Richard turned, still gripping Natalie's wrist. "This is a private matter. Move along." "Doesn't look private to me." Mark took a step forward, gently moving Lily behind him. "Looks like assault." "Do you know who I am?" Richard's face flushed red. "I could buy and sell you 1,000 times over, whoever you are. This woman is my business partner, and we're having a disagreement. It's none of your concern." "Maybe not," Mark agreed, taking another step forward. His movements were calm, measured, like a man who'd learned that true strength never needed to announce itself. "But you're going to let her go anyway." Richard laughed, a harsh sound that made several onlookers step back. "Or what? You'll call security? They work for people like us, not people like you." Mark's expression didn't change. No, I won't call anyone. He moved closer, close enough now that Richard could see the quiet determination in his green eyes, the set of his jaw that suggested he'd face down far worse than an angry executive. You're going to let her go because it's the right thing to do, and because your hand is shaking. Richard glanced down, startled to realize Mark was right. His hand was trembling where it gripped Natalie's wrist. You're scared, Mark continued, his voice almost gentle. Maybe of losing control, maybe of what happens if this deal falls through. But whatever it is, hurting her won't fix it. You don't understand anything, Richard snarled. This woman cost me everything. She was supposed to... I don't need to understand. Mark was close enough now to reach them. I just need you to let her go. For a long moment, the terminal seemed to hold its breath. Then Richard shoved Natalie forward with such force that she stumbled. Mark caught her before she hit the ground, steadying her with surprising gentleness. This isn't over, Natalie, Richard spat. You can't run from this. The board meets tomorrow, and if you're not there, if you don't agree to the terms, I'll destroy everything your father built. Everything. He stormed off, leaving Natalie trembling in Mark's arms. The crowd began to disperse, their phones lowered, the show over. Several people muttered about corporate drama and rich people problems as they walked away. Ma'am, Mark's voice was soft. Are you okay? Natalie tried to stand on her own, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only pain and exhaustion. I need to. Daddy, she's hurt, Lily said, peering around her father's leg. She needs a Band-Aid. I have some in my backpack. They have unicorns on them. Despite everything, Natalie found herself almost smiling at the child's earnest concern. When was the last time anyone had offered her something so simple, so kind, without wanting anything in return? Thank you, she whispered to Mark. You didn't have to. Yeah, I did. He glanced around the terminal. Is there someone I can call for you? Family? Friends? The question hit harder than Richard's fists. Family? Her parents were dead. Her stepbrother would probably side with Richard. Friends? She'd sacrificed every relationship for the company. She swayed on her feet and Mark steadied her again. Okay, let's get you seated at least. He guided her to a nearby bench, Lily trailing behind them like a devoted shadow. Lily, can you get those Band-Aids? The little girl immediately dropped her backpack and began rummaging through it with the seriousness of a surgeon preparing for operation. I also have juice boxes, she announced. Apple or fruit punch. Juice helps when you're sad. That's what Daddy says. Your daddy sounds smart, Natalie managed, her voice hoarse. Mark sat down beside her, maintaining a respectful distance, but close enough to catch her if she fainted. Up close, she could see the fatigue in his eyes, the stubble on his jaw that suggested he'd been traveling for a while. I'm Mark, he said simply. That's Lily. Natalie. She didn't add the cross or the CEO or any of the titles that usually followed her name. Right now she was just Natalie, sitting on a bench with a stranger and his daughter, wondering how her life had come to this. That man, Mark said carefully, is he going to come back? Probably. She touched her ribs gingerly, wincing. He needs me to. It's complicated. It always is. Mark watched as Lily produced a juice box and a handful of unicorn Band-Aids. But complicated doesn't give him the right to hurt you. You don't understand. I've done things, made decisions. Natalie's voice broke. Maybe I deserve... No. The single word was firm, final. Nobody deserves that. I don't care what you've done. Lily approached with her supplies, her little face scrunched in concentration. Where does it hurt most? She asked Natalie. Everywhere, Natalie admitted, then caught herself. I mean, I know what everywhere hurts feels like, Lily said solemnly. When Mommy went to heaven, everything hurt for a long time. But Daddy said that's okay because it means we loved really big. Mark's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Lily? It's okay, Daddy. The lady needs to know. Lily carefully placed a unicorn Band-Aid on Natalie's hand where the skin had scraped against the floor. See? Unicorns make everything better. That's just science. Despite everything, the pain, the humiliation, the fear of what tomorrow would bring, Natalie found herself laughing. It was a broken sound, half sob, but it was real. "You know what?" Mark said suddenly. "Our flight's been delayed another 2 hours. There's a decent restaurant in Terminal C. Nothing fancy, but they make good soup. When's the last time you ate?" Natalie tried to remember. Yesterday? The day before? She'd been running on coffee and anxiety for so long she'd forgotten what hunger felt like. "I couldn't impose." "You're not imposing. We're offering." Mark stood, extending his hand. "Besides, Lily's been begging for mac and cheese all day, and I never could say no to mac and cheese." "It's the best mac and cheese," Lily added seriously. "They put breadcrumbs on top." Fancy breadcrumbs. Natalie looked at the offered hand, calloused, steady, attached to a man who'd stood up for her when no one else would. Then she looked at Lily, still clutching her unicorn band-aids like precious treasure, ready to heal the whole world one scrape at a time. Her phone buzzed. 12 missed calls from board members. 20 texts from Richard. 3 voicemails from her stepbrother, probably threatening her with legal action if she didn't show up tomorrow. She turned the phone off. "Okay," she said, taking Mark's hand and letting him pull her to her feet. "Mac and cheese sounds good." They made an odd trio walking through the terminal. A construction worker in flannel, a battered CEO in designer clothes, and a 6-year-old in light-up shoes leading the way. People stared, some recognizing Natalie from the earlier scene, but Mark's presence seemed to create a buffer around them, a zone of protection that no one dared breach. The restaurant was nothing special, just another airport chain with overpriced food and harsh lighting. But when they sat down and Lily immediately began coloring on her placemat with crayons she'd produced from her seemingly bottomless backpack, something in Natalie's chest loosened. "So," Mark said, after they'd ordered, mac and cheese for Lily, soup for Natalie, a burger for himself. "You running to something or from something?" "Both." "Neither." Natalie wrapped her hands around her water glass, seeking its coolness. "I was supposed to fly to Tokyo. There's a merger, a marriage arrangement. My father set it up before he died. If I don't go through with it, I lose everything. And if you do go through with it, I lose myself." The words came out before she could stop them. Mark nodded as if this made perfect sense. "Yeah, that's a tough one. You're not going to tell me what to do? Give me advice? Lady, I'm a single dad who works construction. I'm not qualified to give advice to anyone." He smiled slightly. "But I know what it's like to have everything you thought mattered disappear. Sometimes it's the best thing that can happen." "Daddy was in the army," Lily announced, not looking up from her coloring. "He was a hero, but he doesn't like to talk about it. Now he builds houses for families that don't have any. He's still a hero, just a different kind." "Lily, we talked about this." "It's true," Lily protested. "Mrs. Rodriguez said so, and Mr. Kim, and that man at the grocery store who cried when you fixed his roof for free." Mark's ears reddened. People exaggerate. But Natalie was studying him with new eyes, the quiet confidence, the way he'd assessed Richard's weakness, the protective instinct that had sent him forward when everyone else stepped back. "You were military?" "Army. Did my time. Now I do this." He gestured vaguely. "It's simpler." Their food arrived, and Lily dove into her mac and cheese with enthusiasm. Natalie took a spoonful of soup and nearly moaned. When had simple chicken noodle tasted so good? "Can I ask you something?" she said to Mark. "Shoot." "Why did you help me?" "Really?" Mark considered this, taking a bite of his burger. "Lily asked why that man was hurting you. What was I supposed to tell her? That sometimes people hurt each other and we just watch? That money or power makes it okay? She's going to grow up in this world. I want her to know that someone will always stand up, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not their problem." "But you didn't know anything about me." "I could be... I'm not a good person, Mark. The things I've done for my company. Are you hurting anyone right now?" "What?" "Right now, in this moment, are you hurting anyone?" "No, but..." "Then right now, you're good enough for mac and cheese." He smiled slightly. "Tomorrow, you can go back to being whoever you think you are. Tonight, you're just someone who needed help." Lily looked up from her placemat, which now featured an elaborate unicorn kingdom. "Daddy says everyone gets a fresh start every day. like how the sun comes up new. You can be anybody when the sun comes up. Smart daddy, Natalie said softly. The smartest, Lily agreed. He can fix anything. Houses, cars, toys. Maybe he can fix your sad too. Lily, that's not, Mark started. I'm trying, Lily said to Natalie, ignoring her father. It just takes time. Daddy was really sad when Mommy went to heaven, but I drew him pictures every day, and we planted flowers, and we talked to Mommy at night before bed. Now, he's still sad sometimes, but it's a softer sad, like a bruise that's healing. Natalie's eyes burned with unexpected tears. This child, this innocent soul who'd lost her mother, was trying to comfort a stranger. When had anyone last shown her such pure kindness? What happened? She asked Mark quietly. If you don't mind. Cancer, he said simply. 3 years ago. Lily was 3, old enough to remember, young enough to adapt. Kids are resilient like that. I'm sorry. Me too, but Sarah, my wife, she wouldn't want us stuck in the sorry. She was all about moving forward, finding the next good thing. He watched Lily return to her coloring. Some days are harder than others. And you never remarried? Found someone else? Mark shrugged. Been focused on Lily. Being enough for her. Work keeps me busy, and she's got activities, soccer, art class, a piano teacher who claims she has natural talent, but I think just likes my check clearing every month. Daddy, Lily protested, Mrs. Chen says I have promise. You have something, Mark agreed. I'm not sure it's musical. They fell into comfortable conversation, the kind that happens when strangers realize they're not really strangers at all, just people who hadn't met yet. Mark told her about his construction company, small but growing, specializing in affordable housing and renovation for low-income families. Natalie found herself sharing stories from before the CEO title, before the pressure, before she'd forgotten who she used to be. I wanted to be a teacher, she admitted, surprising herself. Elementary school. I loved kids, loved the idea of shaping minds, making a difference. But my father said teachers don't change the world, CEOs do. He was wrong, Mark said simply. Teachers changed my world. Mrs. Patterson, 5th grade, told me I was smart enough for college, even though my dad said college was for rich kids. She's the reason I got into West Point. But you didn't stay military? Sarah got sick right after my second deployment. Choices had to be made. I chose her, chose Lily. Never regretted it. The restaurant was starting to empty, the late hour and delayed flights creating an unusual calm in the terminal. Lily had progressed from coloring to building towers with sugar packets, her tongue stuck out in concentration. Your flight, Natalie said suddenly. I'm keeping you delayed another hour according to the board. Besides, Mark looked at her seriously. You shouldn't be alone right now. That man, Richard, he might come back. He will come back. He has too much riding on this deal. Natalie's phone, still off, felt like a weight in her purse. I should probably... Nope, Lily announced. You need more time. Daddy, tell her about the breathing thing. The breathing thing? For when everything feels too big, Lily explained. Daddy taught me. You breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. It makes your body remember it's okay. Special Forces training, Mark admitted, for dealing with stress. Lily had nightmares after. It helped. Show me? So there, in an airport restaurant with sticky tables and fluorescent lighting, a CEO worth billions learned to breathe from a 6-year-old and her father. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Simple, basic, revolutionary. Better? Lily asked. Better, Natalie admitted. And it was true. The vice around her chest had loosened slightly. Our flight's boarding, Mark said, checking his watch. But, he hesitated, then pulled out his phone. Look, I know this is weird, but take my number. In case you need something, someone, whatever. Natalie stared at the offered phone. When did people just give their numbers anymore? No business card, no networking app, just a simple gesture of human connection. She entered her number, then his, into her phone. Thank you, she said, for everything. Don't know how to repay. You don't. That's not how it works. Mark stood, helping Lily pack up her coloring supplies. You pass it on sometime. When you see someone who needs help, you help. That's the deal. Daddy, can she come with us? Lily asked suddenly. She doesn't have anywhere to go. Lily, she has a life here. Actually, Natalie said, surprising herself again, I don't. Not really. I have a company that's about to be taken from me, an apartment I barely see, and a family that only cares about my net worth. She stood as well, her decision suddenly crystal clear. I don't suppose you know any good hotels near where you live. I think I need to not be here for a while. Mark and Lily exchanged looks. Well, Mark said slowly, Chicago's got plenty of hotels. But it's late, you're hurt, and… He paused, seeming to wrestle with something. We have a spare room. It's nothing fancy, just a converted office, but it's clean and safe. You could stay tonight, figure out your next move when the sun's up and everything doesn't feel so overwhelming. I couldn't… Yes, Lily interrupted. Please say yes. I'll show you my room and my drawings and my fish. His name is Mr. Bubbles, but he doesn't blow bubbles, which I think is false advertising. Natalie looked at these two strangers who'd shown her more kindness in 2 hours than anyone had in years. The smart thing would be to say no, to check into a hotel, to face tomorrow's board meeting and salvage what she could of her empire. But when had the smart thing ever made her happy? Okay, she said. If you're sure, we're sure, Lily said firmly. Daddy, tell her we're sure. We're sure, Mark echoed, and his smile was warm, genuine. Come on, let's go home. They walked to their gate together, Lily between them, chattering about everything and nothing. Other passengers glanced at them curiously. The well-dressed woman with the bruised face, the working man with gentle eyes, the child who seemed to think she'd just won the lottery by gaining a new friend. As they boarded the plane to Chicago, Natalie's phone buzzed one more time in her purse. She pulled it out, saw Richard's name, and without hesitation turned it completely off. Window or aisle? Mark asked, checking their boarding passes. I… Natalie realized she hadn't flown commercial in 5 years. The company jet was always waiting. I don't know. Window, Lily decided. You need to see the clouds. Daddy says Mommy lives in the clouds now, so they must be pretty special. As Natalie settled into the middle seat, Lily at the window and Mark on the aisle, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Protected. Safe. Part of something, even if that something was temporary and made no sense. The plane lifted off into the night sky, leaving behind the terminal where Natalie Cross, the CEO, had fallen to her knees. But the woman sitting between Mark and Lily, watching the lights of the city fade below, wasn't really that CEO anymore. She was just Natalie, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, that felt like enough. Lily reached over and took her hand as the plane climbed higher. Don't worry, the little girl whispered. Daddy and I are really good at taking care of people. We practiced on each other. Mark heard and reached across to squeeze Natalie's other hand briefly. She's right. We're pretty good at it. Outside the window, the clouds parted to reveal a sea of stars, and Natalie thought that maybe, just maybe, there was more than one way to be powerful in this world. Maybe real power wasn't in boardrooms or bank accounts, but in the choice to help, to stand up, to offer mac and cheese to someone who needed it. Her empire might crumble tomorrow. Richard might destroy everything her father built. But tonight, she was flying toward something new, something unnamed and uncertain, but absolutely real. Thank you, she whispered to both of them. For what? Lily asked. For reminding me who I could be. The little girl smiled and squeezed her hand tighter. Oh, that's easy. You could be anybody. Daddy says so. The sun comes up new every day. As the plane carried them through the darkness toward a city where no one knew she was coming, where no board meeting awaited, where a spare room in a modest home offered more promise than any corporate merger, Natalie Cross closed her eyes and did the breathing thing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. And for the first time in years, she could breathe. The rain started just as they landed in Chicago, a steady drumming against the aircraft windows that made Lily press her nose to the glass in fascination. The clouds followed us down, she announced with the certainty only a 6-year-old could possess. Natalie watched the child's wonder and felt something crack inside her chest, some wall she'd built so carefully over the years beginning to crumble. Mark gathered their things with practiced efficiency, helping Lily with her unicorn backpack while keeping a protective eye on Natalie. She moved stiffly, her ribs protesting every breath, but she refused to show weakness. Old habits died hard, even when your world was collapsing. "My truck's in long-term parking," Mark said as they made their way through O'Hare's familiar corridors. "It's nothing fancy, but it runs." Nothing fancy turned out to be a Ford F-150 with car seats in the back and coffee cups in every holder. The dashboard was cluttered with parking receipts, Lily's artwork, and a small framed photo of a woman with Lily's same dark eyes and Mark's smile. Sarah, Natalie realized, still riding with them, even 3 years later. "Sorry about the mess," Mark said, clearing fast food napkins from the passenger seat. "We drove straight to the airport from Denver. My mom's funeral was—" He paused. "Complicated." "I'm sorry," Natalie said, settling into the worn leather seat. "I didn't realize you were dealing with the loss, too." "Daddy's mom was mean," Lily piped up from her car seat. "She said I reminded her of Mommy, and that made her sad, which doesn't make sense because Mommy should make people happy, not sad." "Lily, we talked about this. It's true. She said Mommy trapped you with a baby and that's why you left the army. But that's stupid because I wasn't even born when you left the army. I came after, which means I'm not a trap. I'm a surprise. Like finding money in your pocket." Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he navigated the parking garage. "My mother had opinions about everything. Sarah being Korean was just one of many things she disapproved of." Natalie thought of her own father, his endless disapproval, his constant push for more, better, bigger. "Families are complicated," she said softly. "The best ones are," Mark agreed, pulling onto the rain-slicked highway. "The worst ones are just mean." They drove in comfortable silence for a while, Lily humming something tuneless in the back, the wipers beating a steady rhythm. Natalie watched the city lights blur past, each one representing a life, a story, a world she'd never bothered to notice from her corner office high above the streets. "We're almost home," Mark said, taking an exit into a neighborhood that had seen better days. Small houses crowded together, some well-maintained, others showing the wear of hard times. "It's not much, but it's perfect," Natalie interrupted, surprising herself with her vehemence. "It's real." Mark's house sat on a corner lot, a 2-story craftsman that had obviously been restored with love and skill. The porch light was on, casting a warm glow over the rain-wet steps. Window boxes held the remnants of summer flowers, and a child's bicycle leaned against the railing. "I've been fixing it up slowly," Mark said, pulling into the narrow driveway. "Bought it as a foreclosure 3 years ago, right after Sarah died. Needed something to do with my hands. Daddy built my whole room," Lily announced, "with shelves that look like trees and a reading nook that's like a cave, but not scary. He says building things helps his inside feel less broken." Mark's ears reddened. "Lily has no filter," he said apologetically. "No," Natalie said. "She has no pretense. There's a difference." They hurried through the rain to the front door, Mark carrying a sleeping Lily who'd finally succumbed to the late hour. Inside, the house was exactly what Natalie expected, and nothing like it at the same time. Clean but lived in, organized but clearly home to a child. The walls were covered with Lily's artwork, framed like masterpieces. Books overflowed from shelves Mark had obviously built himself. A piano sat in the corner, sheet music scattered on the bench. "Let me put her to bed," Mark said quietly. "Make yourself at home. Kitchen's through there if you need water or anything." Natalie wandered into the kitchen, taking in the magnets on the refrigerator, holding up school papers and appointment reminders. A calendar on the wall was filled with Mark's neat handwriting. Soccer practice, piano lessons, school play rehearsal. The life of a single parent laid out in blue ink. Her phone, still in her purse, felt like a bomb waiting to explode. She knew she should turn it on, face the messages, deal with the crisis. But standing in this warm kitchen with its mismatched chairs and coffee-stained counters, she couldn't bring herself to let that world back in yet. "She went down easy," Mark said, returning. "Usually takes 3 stories and a negotiation about breakfast. You must have worn her out with all that excitement. She's remarkable, Natalie said. You've done an amazing job with her. I've done what I could. Some days that feels like enough. Other days. He shrugged, pulling 2 mugs from a cabinet. Tea? Coffee? Something stronger? I think I have a bottle of whiskey somewhere that someone gave me after Sarah's funeral. Tea sounds perfect. They stood in comfortable silence while the water boiled, the rain creating a cocoon around the little house. Natalie found herself studying Mark when he wasn't looking, the way his hands moved with careful precision, the slight stoop to his shoulders that spoke of carrying too much for too long, the gentleness that seemed to radiate from him despite his obvious strength. "Can I ask you something?" she said as he handed her a mug of chamomile tea. "Sure." "Why did you really help me?" The truth this time. Mark leaned against the counter, considering. "You reminded me of Sarah," he said finally. "Not physically, but the day she got her diagnosis, she had this look, like the world had just shifted under her feet and she didn't know how to stand anymore. You had that same look. What did you do?" "When she got the diagnosis?" "Held her, cried with her. Then we made a plan. 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time, if necessary. We had 2 years, which was more than they originally gave us. 2 years of Lily growing, of memories made, of learning that time isn't about quantity." Natalie's hands tightened around the warm mug. "My father died 6 months ago. Heart attack at his desk. He was in the middle of a merger negotiation. They found him with his pen still in his hand." "I'm sorry." "I'm not sure I am," she admitted. "Is that terrible? He was my father, but he made me into something I'm not sure I want to be anymore. People are allowed to be complicated. Your feelings about them are allowed to be complicated too." The rain intensified, hammering against the windows. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked steadily. Natalie realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd been in a space this quiet, this peaceful. "The spare room's upstairs," Mark said. "I can show you." His phone rang, cutting him off. He frowned at the screen. "Unknown number." "Don't answer it," Natalie said quickly. "It might be," but Mark had already accepted the call. "Hello?" Even from across the kitchen, Natalie could hear Richard's voice, sharp and demanding. "Mr. Davis, I presume? The Good Samaritan from the airport?" Mark's expression hardened. "How did you get this number?" "I have resources you couldn't imagine. I know you have Miss Cross with you. I know you live at 427 Maple Street. I know you have a daughter named Lily who attends Riverside Elementary." The threat was implicit but clear. Mark's jaw clenched, but his voice remained calm. "What do you want?" "I want to speak to Natalie. Now." Mark looked at her, eyebrow raised in question. She shook her head, but then held out her hand for the phone. Running wouldn't solve this. "Richard," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Have you lost your mind? Do you have any idea what you're doing? The board is in emergency session. The Sakamoto family is threatening to pull out entirely. 20,000 jobs, Natalie. 20,000 people will lose their livelihoods if this deal falls through. That's not my responsibility anymore." "Not your—" Richard's voice rose to a near shriek. "Your father built this company. You have an obligation." "My father is dead," Natalie said flatly, "and his obligations died with him." "You selfish bitch! You'd throw it all away for what? Some misguided rebellion? A mental breakdown?" Mark moved closer, not touching, but present, a solid wall of support. Natalie drew strength from his proximity. "I'm throwing it away for my life," she said, "for the chance to be something more than a signature on contracts I don't believe in." "You think you can just walk away?" "I have documents with your signature, preliminary agreements. The board can sue you into oblivion." "Then let them." Silence on the other end, then Richard's voice, low and dangerous. "I'm coming to Chicago. We're going to settle this face to face. I won't see you. You will. Because if you don't, I'll make sure your new friend loses everything, his construction business, his house, maybe even his precious daughter. Foster care can be so traumatic for children, don't you think?" The line went dead. Natalie stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Mark gently took it from her hand. He can't, she started. He can try, Mark said calmly. Men like him always think they can buy or threaten their way into anything. But Natalie, I need you to understand something. You don't have to face him. You don't owe him or anyone else a confrontation. But what he said about Lily, about your business, I've faced worse threats from better men, Mark said simply. In Afghanistan, they threatened my unit's families to try to break us. You know what we learned? Bullies only have the power you give them. This is different. Richard has resources, lawyers, connections, and I have something he doesn't. Mark's smile was slight, but genuine. Nothing left to lose except what really matters. My business? I can rebuild. My house? It's just walls and a roof. But Lily, my integrity? Those aren't for sale or subject to negotiation. Natalie sank into one of the kitchen chairs, suddenly exhausted. I shouldn't have come here. I've put you both in danger. No, Mark said firmly, sitting across from her. You've given us a chance to do something that matters. Lily learned tonight that standing up for someone isn't just a concept, it's an action. That's worth any risk. You don't even know me. I could be lying about everything. Are you? No, but then we're good. He stood, moving to a drawer and pulling out a first aid kit. Now, let me look at those ribs. I've got some training from my army days. I'm fine. You've been holding your left side since we got here, and you wince every time you take a deep breath. That's not fine. She wanted to protest, to maintain the walls of propriety and distance, but she was so tired. Tired of being strong, tired of being alone, tired of pretending everything was under control when it hadn't been for months. Okay, she whispered. Mark's hands were gentle as he helped her out of her suit jacket, revealing the bruises that had bloomed across her ribs like purple flowers. He hissed through his teeth. This needs an X-ray, he said. You could have broken ribs. They're just bruised. I've had worse. Mark's hand stilled. From him? From life, she said, not quite answering. The physical bruises are new. The other kind, those I've been collecting for years. He carefully applied arnica cream to the worst of the bruising, his touch clinical but caring. Sarah used to say that emotional bruises needed the most tending. They're the ones that don't heal on their own. How did she heal them? Time, love, purpose beyond herself. He helped her back into her jacket. She volunteered at a women's shelter before she got too sick. Said it reminded her that everyone was fighting something. I've never volunteered for anything, Natalie admitted. Never had time. You have time now. The simple statement hit her like a revelation. She did have time now. For the first time in her adult life, she had no meetings tomorrow, no calls to return, no deals to close. The freedom was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. A small voice from the doorway made them both turn. Are you fixing her? Lily stood there in dinosaur pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. Hey, Sweet Pea, Mark said. You should be asleep. I heard voices. Angry voices. Lily patted over to Natalie. Was it the mean man from the airport? Yes, Natalie said, seeing no point in lying. But it's okay. Your daddy scared him away. Lily climbed into Natalie's lap with the confidence of a child who'd never been rejected. Daddy's good at scaring away bad things. He checks my closet every night and tells the monsters to go away. They always listen. Maybe he can teach me that trick, Natalie said, smoothing Lily's hair. It's easy, Lily said seriously. You just have to use your strong voice and mean it. Monsters can tell if you don't mean it. All right, monster fighter, Mark said, lifting Lily from Natalie's lap. Back to bed. Can Miss Natalie tuck me in too? Mark looked at Natalie questioningly. She nodded, standing carefully. Lily's room was exactly as described, a masterpiece of a father's love. The shelves really did look like trees, complete with carved leaves and hidden birds. The reading nook was a cozy cave with fairy lights strung along the opening. Every surface held treasures, rocks, feathers, broken jewelry transformed into fairy crowns. This is my mommy, Lily said, showing Natalie a photo by her bed. The woman in the picture was radiant, her smile infectious, her arms wrapped around a younger Lily. Daddy says I have her smile and her stubborn. Her stubborn? Yeah, when I don't want to do something, I get really stubborn, like Mommy did when the doctor said she should stop working. She kept going until she couldn't anymore because she said kids needed her. What did she do? She was a nurse. For kids. Daddy says she made scared kids brave. Mark tucked the blankets around Lily with practiced ease. Story or song? Song, Lily decided. The one about the blackbird. Mark sat on the edge of the bed and began to sing softly, his voice rough but tender. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, take these broken wings and learn to fly. Natalie stood in the doorway, watching this nightly ritual, and felt her heart crack wide open. This was wealth. This was power. This small room with its handmade wonders. This child with her absolute trust. This man with his quiet strength. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Without looking, she knew it was Richard or the board or her stepbrother or any of the dozen people who thought they owned pieces of her. She left it unanswered. When Lily was asleep, Mark showed Natalie to the spare room. It was simple but clean, with a quilt that looked handmade and a small window overlooking the backyard. Sarah's mother made that quilt, Mark said, indicating the bed. She sends one every Christmas. I think it's her way of staying connected to Lily. It's beautiful. There are towels in the bathroom, and I'll find you something to sleep in. Sarah's clothes are still... He paused. I kept them. I know that's probably weird, but it's not weird, Natalie said. It's love. Mark looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Yeah, he said quietly. It is. He returned with a soft t-shirt and pajama pants. They might be a bit small, but they're comfortable. After he left, Natalie changed slowly, her ribs protesting. Sarah's clothes smelled faintly of lavender, and something else, something indefinable but comforting. She sat on the bed, looking around the small room that was now, temporarily, hers. Her phone rang again. This time she looked at the screen, her stepbrother, calling for the 15th time. She answered. Nathan! Jesus Christ, Natalie, where are you? Richard's lost his mind. He's calling emergency board meetings, threatening lawsuits. The Sakamoto family is pulling out. Dad's company is imploding. Dad's company was always going to implode, she said calmly. It was built on exploitation and greed. Spare me the moral crisis. You have a responsibility. No, Nathan, I had a job. There's a difference. You're having a breakdown. That's what this is. The stress finally got to you. Come back, take a vacation after the merger. Hell, take a year off. Just don't throw everything away. I'm not throwing it away. I'm setting it down. There's a difference. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Natalie, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about the employees, the shareholders. I've thought about nothing else for 5 years, she said. Now I'm thinking about me. She hung up and turned off the phone completely. A soft knock at the door made her look up. Mark stood there with a glass of water and 2 ibuprofen. Thought you might need these, he said. Thank you. She took the pills gratefully. Mark, I need to be honest with you. Tomorrow is going to get ugly. Richard won't give up. The board will probably sue me. The media will get involved. Your life is about to become very complicated if I stay here. My life got complicated the day Sarah got diagnosed, Mark said. Everything since then has been manageable. He paused in the doorway. But if you want to leave, if you think that's best, I'll drive you wherever you want to go. What do you think I should do? I think, Mark said slowly, that you should stop running from something and start running to something. But that's just me. What would I run to? That's for you to figure out. But Lily and I make pretty good pancakes, so at minimum, you could run to breakfast. After he left, Natalie lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain against the window. Somewhere in this house, a little girl slept surrounded by handmade wonders. Down the hall, a man who'd lost everything that mattered except his daughter was probably lying awake, wondering if he'd made a mistake letting a stranger into their carefully rebuilt life. But he had let her in, without knowing her history, her sins, her failures. He'd seen her at her lowest and offered not judgment, but sanctuary. Her empire was crumbling. By tomorrow, she might be sued into bankruptcy, her reputation destroyed, her father's legacy in ruins. Richard would win. The board would win. Everyone who said she couldn't walk away would win. Except, would they? What was winning, really? Was it sitting in a boardroom at midnight signing deals that destroyed communities? Was it marrying a stranger for a merger? Was it dying at your desk with a pen in your hand and no one who truly mourned you? Or was it this? A borrowed room, a handmade quilt, the promise of pancakes and the trust of a child who drew unicorns to heal wounds. The rain continued its steady rhythm, and somewhere between one breath and the next, Natalie made her decision. Not the big decision. That would come later with lawyers and documents and formal resignations, but the small decision, the one that mattered most. She would stay for breakfast. She would stay to see Lily's fish that didn't blow bubbles. She would stay to learn how Mark had rebuilt his life from the ashes of loss. She would stay because for the first time in years, someone had seen her not as a CEO or an heiress or a problem to be solved, but as a person who needed help. Tomorrow, Richard would come with his threats and his lawyers. The board would demand answers. The media would paint her as either a villain or a victim, neither of which was true. But tonight, she was just Natalie, wearing borrowed pajamas in a stranger's spare room, listening to the rain and feeling something she'd thought was dead forever. Hope. The sound of footsteps in the hall made her sit up, not Mark's heavy tread, but lighter. Lily appeared in the doorway, dragging a stuffed elephant behind her. "I can't sleep," she announced. "Mr. Elephant says you're sad and need company." "Mr. Elephant is very wise," Natalie said, shifting over to make room. Lily climbed into bed beside her, arranging herself and the elephant with great ceremony. "Daddy says it's okay to be sad. It means you're human. Robots don't get sad." "I felt like a robot for a long time," Natalie admitted. "But not anymore?" "No, not anymore." "Good. Robots can't eat pancakes. Their circuits would get sticky." They lay in comfortable silence, the little girl's warmth a balm against the ache in Natalie's ribs and heart. "Miss Natalie." "Yes? Are you going to stay?" "For breakfast, yes. What about after breakfast?" "I don't know." Lily considered this. When Mommy was sick, she didn't know about tomorrow either. So we made up a game. We'd say, "Today I'm here," every morning. That way we didn't have to worry about tomorrow. "Today I'm here," Natalie whispered. "See? Easy." Lily yawned enormously. "Can I tell you a secret?" "Of course. I think Daddy likes you. Not like because he still loves Mommy, but likes you like you're important. He doesn't let many people be important. You're very observant for 6. I'm almost 7. That's practically grown up." Mark's voice from the doorway made them both look up. "Lily Marie Davis, what are you doing out of bed?" "Keeping Miss Natalie company," Lily said innocently. Mr. Elephant insisted. "Mr. Elephant needs to learn boundaries." But Mark's voice was fond, not angry. "Come on, back to your own bed." "Can I stay?" "Please, I'll be quiet." Mark looked at Natalie, who nodded. "Fine. But if I hear giggling, you're out." "No giggling," Lily promised solemnly. Mark hesitated, then said, "Natalie, you should know, Richard called again. He's on a plane to Chicago. He'll be here in the morning." "I know." "We can leave. I have a cabin about 2 hours north. It's not much, but—" "No more running," Natalie said. "If he wants to find me, he can find me here. But I'm done being afraid of him." Mark nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll face it together then. You don't have to— Yes," he said firmly. "I do. You're not alone in this anymore." After he left, Lily snuggled closer. "See?" she whispered. "Important." Natalie wrapped her arm around the little girl, careful of her ribs. Outside, Chicago spread out in all its messy, beautiful glory. Somewhere in the city, Richard was probably already planning his attack, marshaling his forces, preparing to drag her back to the life she'd escaped. But here, in this small room, with a handmade quilt and a 6-year-old philosopher, Natalie felt more powerful than she had in any boardroom. This was choosing. This was freedom. This was the beginning of whatever came next. "Miss Natalie?" Lily's voice was drowsy. "Yes?" "I'm glad the mean man hurt you." Natalie stiffened. What? Not glad he hurt you, but glad it made you come with us. Sometimes bad things lead to good things. Mommy said so. Your mommy was very wise. The wisest. Except about vegetables. She thought Brussels sprouts were food, which is obviously wrong. Natalie found herself laughing, actually laughing, for the first time in months. It hurt her ribs, but healed something else. Go to sleep, she said softly. You too. Tomorrow needs us rested. Why? Because tomorrow we make pancakes. Pancakes require energy. As Lily's breathing deepened into sleep, Natalie stared at the ceiling and thought about choices. Every choice she'd made for the last 5 years had been about preserving her father's legacy, meeting others' expectations, maintaining an image. But Mark had chosen love over career when Sarah got sick. Lily chose joy even after losing her mother. Sarah had chosen to keep working with sick children until she couldn't anymore. All of them had chosen humanity over everything else. The rain had stopped, leaving only the sound of water dripping from the gutters. Somewhere a dog barked. A car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating the room before moving on. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary neighborhood where extraordinary people lived their extraordinary ordinary lives. Her phone, still off, held no power here. Richard's threats felt distant, almost abstract. The board's anger, the merger's collapse, the empire's fall, none of it could touch this moment, this room, this unexpected peace. Today I'm here, she whispered to the darkness. And for today, that was enough. The first light of dawn was just beginning to creep through the window when Natalie woke. Lily was sprawled across the bed like a starfish, Mr. Elephant somehow on the floor. The smell of coffee drifted up from downstairs, along with the sound of quiet movement in the kitchen. Natalie carefully extracted herself from the bed, tucked Lily back in, and padded downstairs. Mark was at the stove, already dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt, making what appeared to be preparations for the promised pancakes. Morning, he said without turning around. Coffee's ready. How did you know it was me? Lily sounds like a herd of elephants on the stairs. You move like someone who's learned to be invisible. She poured herself a cup of coffee, wrapping her hands around its warmth. Old habit. In board meetings, the less notice you draw before you strike, the better. Sounds exhausting. It was. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunrise paint the kitchen gold. The ordinary magic of a new day beginning. He'll be here soon, Mark said. Richard? I know. What's your plan? I don't have one, Natalie admitted. For the first time in my life, I don't have a plan. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's terrifying. The best things usually are. Mark flipped a test pancake with practiced ease. Sarah was terrified when we found out she was pregnant. We were young. I was about to deploy. She was in nursing school. Nothing about it made sense. But Lily happened anyway. The best things don't wait for perfect timing. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:30, just as Lily was drowning her third pancake in enough syrup to float a small boat. The sound cut through the morning warmth like a blade, and everyone froze. Even Lily, who'd been chattering nonstop about her upcoming school play, fell silent. That's him, Natalie said unnecessarily. Her coffee cup trembled slightly as she set it down. Mark stood, his movement calm and deliberate. Lily, honey, why don't you go upstairs and play in your room for a bit? But I'm not done with pancakes, Lily protested, then caught sight of their faces. Is it the mean man? Yes, Mark said simply. He'd learned never to lie to his daughter about hard things. Lily slid off her chair and walked over to Natalie, wrapping her small arms around her waist. Remember the strong voice, she whispered. And if he's mean again, Daddy will make him leave. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Go on upstairs, sweetheart, Mark said gently. Lily grabbed Mr. Elephant from where she'd dropped him by the stairs and marched up with the dignity of a general heading to battle. They heard her door close firmly. You don't have to see him, Mark said to Natalie. I can send him away. No. Natalie stood, smoothing down Sarah's borrowed t-shirt. I need to do this. But Mark, whatever he says, whatever threats he makes, Won't change anything, Mark finished. I told you, we're in this together. He walked to the door with Natalie following. Through the peephole, she could see Richard standing on the porch in his $1,000 suit, looking grossly out of place in the modest neighborhood. Behind him stood two men who were clearly lawyers, and behind them, a black town car idled at the curb. Mark opened the door but didn't step aside. Mr. Blackwood, Mr. Davis. Richard's voice dripped disdain as he took in Mark's appearance, the simple house, the toys visible in the hallway. I'm here to collect Miss Cross. She's not property to be collected, Mark said evenly. No, but she is the CEO of a major corporation with fiduciary responsibilities she's currently abandoning. Richard's eyes found Natalie over Mark's shoulder. My God, look at you. Hiding in this hovel, playing house with some construction worker. Your father would be disgusted. My father is dead, Natalie said, stepping forward. His opinions died with him. His company didn't. The company you're destroying with this childish tantrum. Let them in, Mark, Natalie said quietly. Let's get this over with. Mark stepped aside reluctantly, and Richard swept in with his lawyers, their expensive shoes loud on the hardwood floors. They looked around the living room with barely concealed contempt, taking in the secondhand furniture, the crayon drawings, the lived-in comfort of the space. 2 hours, Richard said, checking his Rolex. You have 2 hours to pack whatever you need and come with us. The board is meeting at noon. You'll apologize, sign the merger documents, and we'll spin this as exhaustion, a minor breakdown. The Sakamoto family has agreed to overlook this incident if you cooperate fully. No, Natalie said simply. Richard's face flushed. No? You can't just say no. You have contracts, obligations. Actually, one of the lawyers interrupted, pulling out a tablet. She can. I've reviewed the preliminary agreements. Without her final signature, they're meaningless. However, he turned to Natalie, the board can remove you as CEO and sue you for breach of fiduciary duty. You could lose everything. I've already lost everything that mattered, Natalie said. My soul, my integrity, my sense of self. Losing money seems trivial in comparison. 20,000 jobs, Richard said, playing his trump card. 20,000 families depend on this merger going through. Their mortgages, their children's college funds, their futures. You're destroying all of it for what? To play domestic in this working-class fantasy? The words hit home. Natalie wavered, thinking of all those employees, all those families. Mark moved closer, not touching but present, solid. That's manipulation, he said quietly. If the company needs this merger to survive, then it was already failing. That's not on Natalie. What would you know about it? Richard sneered. You hammer nails for a living. I know right from wrong, Mark replied, which seems to be more than you do. Richard ignored him, focusing on Natalie. Your mother's medical research foundation, it's funded entirely by company profits. Without the merger, it closes. Everything she worked for, gone. Natalie felt the blow like a physical hit. Her mother had died when she was 12, cancer taking her slowly, painfully. The foundation had been her father's way of honoring her memory, and Natalie had poured money into it for years. You bastard, she whispered. I'm practical, Richard corrected. Something you used to be. Come back, Natalie. Save the company, save the jobs, save your mother's legacy. All you have to do is sign papers and show up for some photos. The marriage doesn't even have to be real. Separate bedrooms, separate lives, just maintain appearances. Like my parents did? Natalie asked bitterly, smiling for cameras while dying inside. Your parents built an empire. My parents built a mausoleum and lived in it. A small noise from the stairs made everyone turn. Lily stood there, Mr. Elephant clutched to her chest, her face fierce with 6-year-old fury. You're being mean again, she announced to Richard, in my house. Daddy doesn't allow meanness in our house. Lily, go back upstairs, Mark said gently. No. She marched down the stairs and planted herself in front of Natalie. You made her cry yesterday, and you're trying to make her cry today. That makes you a bully. We learned about bullies in school. They're scared people who make others feel bad so they feel better. Richard stared at the child as if she were an alien species. This is none of your concern, little girl. My name is Lily Marie Davis, she said with dignity, And you're in my house making my friend sad. That makes it my concern. One of the lawyers coughed, hiding what might have been a laugh. Richard's face darkened. This is exactly the problem, he said to Natalie. You're hiding behind a child now. How far you've fallen. She's not hiding, Lily said matter-of-factly. She's choosing. Daddy says choosing is the hardest thing adults do, but Miss Natalie is brave. She chose us over you, which means we're better than you. The simple logic of it, delivered with such certainty, seemed to stop Richard cold. For a moment the room was silent except for the tick of the clock on the mantel. Then Natalie laughed. Really laughed, for the second time in 24 hours. She's right, she said. A 6-year-old sees it clearer than any of us. I'm choosing. Not them over you, Richard. Me over everything else. You're making a mistake, Richard said coldly. I'll destroy you. No one will hire you. No bank will lend to you. You'll be a pariah in every boardroom in the country. Good, Natalie said. Boardrooms are where souls go to die. Richard gestured to his lawyers. Draw up the papers. Full corporate divorce. She forfeits everything. Salary, bonuses, stock options, everything. I want one thing, Natalie said suddenly. My mother's foundation. Separate it from the company. Give it independent funding from my trust fund. That's my only condition. Richard smiled nastily. No. You walk away with nothing or you come back with everything. Your choice. Mark stepped forward. Get out of my house. We're not done. Yes, you are. Mark's voice carried the quiet authority it had at the airport. You've made your threats. She's made her choice. Now leave before I help you leave. Richard looked at Mark, really looked at him for the first time, and something in Mark's stance, his eyes, made the executive step back. This isn't over, he said to Natalie. Yes, she said quietly, it is. They left in a flurry of expensive suits and legal threats, the door slamming behind them. The house felt suddenly empty, deflated. Natalie sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. I just destroyed my mother's foundation, she said numbly. 20,000 jobs, everything my father built. Lily climbed onto the couch beside her. But you built something else. What? Today. You built today. The little girl patted her hand. Daddy says that's all we really have anyway. Mark sat on Natalie's other side, careful not to crowd her. She's right. You can't save everyone, Natalie. Sometimes you can barely save yourself. But all those people will find other jobs. The company will survive or it won't. But you get this one life. That's it. Natalie's phone rang. She looked at the screen, her stepbrother again. Answer it, Mark said. Might as well deal with everything at once. She put it on speaker. Nathan. Jesus Christ, Natalie. Richard just called. He says you've lost your mind, that you're shacked up with some random guy and his kid. I'm staying with friends. Friends? Since when do you have friends? You have employees and competitors. That's it. The truth of it stung. Maybe that's the problem. The problem is you're having some kind of breakdown. Mom's foundation, Natalie. You're really going to let it die? Mom's been dead for 28 years, Nathan. The foundation won't bring her back. But it's her legacy. No. We're her legacy, you and me. And what have we become? You're a hedge fund vampire, and was a pharmaceutical tyrant. You think that's what she'd want? Silence on the other end. Then, where are you? Chicago. I'm coming there. Nathan, not to drag you back. To see you. My sister, not the CEO. We haven't really talked, in years. She was surprised to feel tears burning her eyes. Okay. After she hung up, Mark stood. I should check on the garage. I've got employees too, and they're probably wondering where I am. Mark, I'm so sorry about all this. Don't. He touched her shoulder gently. Life happens. We deal with it. He looked at Lily. Want to come help at the shop, kiddo? Can Miss Natalie come? If she wants. Natalie looked at these two people who'd taken her in without question, who were offering her not just shelter, but belonging. I'd like that. Mark's shop was only 10 minutes away, a converted warehouse with Davis Construction Building Dreams, one home at a time, painted on the side. Inside, it smelled of sawdust and possibility. 3 men were working on what looked like cabinet doors, and they all looked up when Mark entered. "Boss, we thought you'd been abducted by aliens," one called out, a heavy-set black man with kind eyes. "Close," Mark said. "Lily, you remember Mr. Jerome." "Hi, Mr. Jerome." Lily ran over to show him Mr. Elephant. "This is Miss Natalie. She's staying with us because a mean man hurt her, but Daddy scared him away." Jerome looked at Natalie, taking in her bruised face and borrowed clothes, and his expression softened. "Well, any friend of Lily's is welcome here." The other workers introduced themselves. Tom, an older white man with gnarled hands that spoke of decades of craftsmanship, and Miguel, young and eager, clearly learning the trade. They accepted her presence without question, returning to their work with the easy rhythm of people who knew their value wasn't measured in stock prices. "What are you building?" Natalie asked, running her hand over a smooth piece of oak. "Cabinets for the Hendersons," Mark said. "They're retiring, downsizing, but wanted something special for their new place. Tom's been working on the detail work for weeks." Tom looked up with quiet pride. 40 years of marriage deserves good cabinets. Natalie watched them work, the careful precision, the pride in craftsmanship, the easy camaraderie. This was creation, not destruction, building up, not tearing down. "Can I help?" she asked suddenly. Miguel laughed. "You ever used a sander?" "No." "Then you can definitely help." "Sanding's where everyone starts?" He handed her safety glasses and showed her how to hold the tool. "Just follow the grain. Wood'll tell you where to go if you listen." For the next 2 hours, Natalie sanded cabinet doors, while Lily drew at a small table Mark had obviously set up for her. The repetitive motion was soothing, meditative. Her phone rang constantly, but she ignored it. The world wanted CEO Natalie Cross, but she was just Natalie, learning to follow the grain. "You're a natural," Tom said, inspecting her work. "Sure you've never done this before?" "I've spent 5 years going against the grain," she said. "Following it is a nice change." Around noon, Nathan arrived. Natalie barely recognized her stepbrother. Gone was the usual 3-piece suit. He wore jeans and a polo shirt, looking oddly vulnerable. "This is where you're hiding?" he asked, looking around the workshop. "This is where I'm living," she corrected. They walked outside to talk, leaving Mark and his crew to their work. Nathan leaned against the building, studying her. "You look different," he said finally. "Bruised?" "Free," he sighed. "Richard's telling everyone you've had a psychotic break. The board's in emergency session. The Sakamoto deal is dead." "I know." "You really don't care?" "I care, but not enough to go back." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "You know, I hated you for a while. After Mom died, Dad gave you everything. His attention, his company, his expectations. I got the leftovers." "Nathan, no, let me finish. I hated you, but I also felt sorry for you. Because at least I got to escape. I got to build my own thing, even if it's not particularly noble. You? You got trapped in his vision. I trapped myself." "Did you? Or did we all just play the roles we were given until we forgot we were acting?" She looked at her stepbrother, really looked at him for the first time in years. He seemed smaller somehow, or maybe she was just seeing him without the filter of resentment and competition. "What do I do now?" she asked. "Whatever you want. That's the terrifying and wonderful thing about burning bridges. You can't go back, so you have to go forward." "The foundation? I'll fund it," Nathan said suddenly. "Not at the same level, but enough to keep the research going. Mom would have hated what Richard's doing." "You didn't even like Mom." "No, but I loved her." "Complicated, remember?" They stood in silence, watching traffic pass. 2 damaged children of a damaged family trying to find their way. "The guy inside," Nathan said. "Mark? He seems good." "He is. You love him?" "I met him yesterday." "That's not an answer." "I don't know what love is anymore. But I know that when I'm with him and Lily, I remember who I wanted to be before I forgot I had a choice." "That might be love, or at least the beginning of it." A car pulled up, and Tom's wife emerged with bags of food. "Lunch!" she called out. "I made too much again." It was an obvious lie. She'd clearly cooked for everyone, but it was the kind of lie that made the world softer. They all sat around a makeshift table in the workshop, passing containers of homemade food, laughing at Lily's jokes, existing in the simple grace of a shared meal. Nathan watched it all with wonder. "When's the last time we did this? Just ate with people?" "I can't remember," Natalie admitted. "Me either." After lunch, Nathan pulled her aside once more. "I have to ask, what's your plan? Long term?" "I don't have one." "You always have a plan." "Not anymore. Plans got me where I was. Now I'm just trying to be where I am." He hugged her suddenly, awkwardly. They weren't a hugging family, hadn't been since their mother died. "Call me," he said, "when you figure out what comes next." After he left, Natalie found herself back at the sander, smoothing wood while Lily napped on the small couch in Mark's office. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning sawdust into golden fairy dust. "Your brother seems nice," Mark said, working beside her. "We haven't been nice to each other in a long time." "Maybe that's changing too." Her phone rang again. This time she recognized the number. Her personal lawyer, not one of Richard's corporate sharks. "Miss Cross, I've been trying to reach you. There's something you should know. Your father's will had a provision I wasn't allowed to discuss until now. If you ever left the company voluntarily, a trust fund activates. It's substantial." "What?" "Why wouldn't he tell me? The letter he left with it says, and I quote, 'If you're hearing this, you finally found the courage to leave. Your mother would be proud. Use this to build something that matters.'" Natalie's legs gave out. She sat hard on a stack of lumber, the phone shaking in her hand. "How much?" she whispered. $50 million. And the house in Vermont your mother loved. It's been maintained all these years, waiting." After the lawyer hung up, Natalie sat in stunned silence. Her father had known, had planned for this, had maybe even hoped for it. "You okay?" Mark asked, sitting beside her. "My father, he left me an escape hatch. All this time there was a way out, and I didn't know." "Would you have taken it if you'd known?" She thought about it. "No. Not until I was ready, not until yesterday. Then it came at the right time. I could fund the foundation. I could do something real." "You could do anything." She looked at him, this man who'd built a life from loss, who created rather than destroyed. "What would you do?" "Honestly, I'd take some time to figure out who you are when you're not running from or to something. Then I'd build from there." Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Is it time to go home?" "Home." The word hung in the air, loaded with possibility. "Yeah, kiddo," Mark said. "Let's go home." As they drove back to the little house on Maple Street, Natalie's phone rang one more time. "Richard." "Don't," Mark said. "Whatever he has to say doesn't matter now." But she answered anyway. "Richard, you think you've won?" His voice was slurred, drinking already, and it was barely 4 o'clock. "I'll destroy you. I'll make sure everyone knows what a failure you are." "Richard, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I forgive you." Silence. Then, "I don't want your forgiveness." "I know, but you have it anyway. We're both products of a toxic system. The difference is, I'm choosing to leave it. You still can, too." "You're naive." "Maybe, but I'm free. Goodbye, Richard." She hung up and turned off her phone for good. That evening, while Mark cooked dinner and Lily set the table with great ceremony, Natalie stood in the backyard, looking at the small garden Mark had planted. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers mixing with vegetables in cheerful chaos. "It's not much," Mark said, joining her, "but it feeds us." "It's perfect." He stood beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Natalie, I need to say something." "Okay. You don't owe us anything. Not gratitude, not staying, nothing. You're free to go whenever you want, wherever you want." "What if I don't want to go?" "Then you stay. As long as you need." What if it's not about need? What if it's about want? He turned to look at her, really look at her. In the dying light, his eyes were the color of forests, deep and alive. Then that's different, he said softly. Mark, I'm complicated. Damaged. I've done things. So have I. Different things, but things. We all have. The question is, what do we do next? Before she could answer, Lily burst through the door. Dinner's ready. I made a centerpiece. She grabbed their hands, pulling them inside. It's flowers from the garden. Daddy says presentation matters even for regular dinner. The centerpiece was a mason jar filled with dandelions and one spectacular rose from the bush by the fence. It was perfect in its imperfection, beautiful in its simplicity. They ate spaghetti that Lily insisted on twirling dramatically, getting sauce everywhere. They talked about school plays and construction projects and whether dinosaurs had feelings. Normal things, small things, the things life was actually made of. Miss Natalie, Lily said as Mark cleared the dishes, are you going to live with us now? I don't know, sweetheart. Would that be okay with you? More than okay. Daddy needs someone besides me to take care of him. It's a lot of work for just one kid. Mark laughed from the kitchen. I take care of myself just fine. You forgot to eat lunch 3 times last week, Lily pointed out, and you wore different socks yesterday. Fashion choice. Mistake, Lily corrected. She looked at Natalie seriously. He needs us. I think, Natalie said carefully, we all need each other. Exactly. See, Daddy, she gets it. Later, after Lily was in bed and the dishes were done, Natalie and Mark sat on the front porch, watching the neighborhood settle into evening. Kids were called inside, porch lights came on, the ordinary ballet of suburban life. I got a job offer today, Natalie said suddenly. Mark tensed. Already? Not that kind of job. Tom's wife at lunch. She mentioned they need someone at the women's shelter. Administrative work, grant writing, fundraising. Nothing like what I'm used to, but maybe exactly what you need. Maybe. The pay would be irrelevant. I found out today my father left me enough to live on. More than enough. So you'd be doing it because you want to? Novel concept, right? They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies begin their evening dance. Somewhere, Richard was probably plotting his revenge. The board was likely in chaos. The financial news would be brutal tomorrow, but here, now, none of that mattered. I should tell you something, Mark said quietly, about my time in Afghanistan. You don't have to. I want to. You trusted me with your story. He took a breath. I was Special Forces. Led a unit that did things I can't talk about, things that still wake me up sometimes. Lost men, good men. Came home with medals I keep in a box in the attic because looking at them makes me remember faces of kids who didn't make it home. Mark, I'm telling you because you said you've done things. So have I. Different things, but things that changed me, marked me. Sarah knew. She saw it all and loved me anyway. Helped me find my way back to being someone I could look at in the mirror. She sounds amazing. She was. But she was also human, flawed. She had a temper that could strip paint and a shopping addiction that nearly bankrupted us twice. She wasn't perfect, neither am I, neither are you. That's the point. Natalie turned to look at him. What is the point? That we're all just doing our best with what we've got. You were trying to honor your father, run a company, be what everyone expected. Now you're trying something different. Both are valid. Both are you. I don't know who I am anymore. Good. Means you get to choose. That's terrifying. Yeah, he smiled slightly, but it's also freedom. A car drove by slowly and Natalie recognized one of Richard's lawyers in the passenger seat. They were watching the house. They know where I am, she said. Let them. This is my property. They can watch all they want. They'll make your life difficult. My life's already difficult. This just makes it interesting. You're not scared? I've been shot at by Taliban fighters. Corporate lawyers don't really compare. Despite everything, Natalie laughed. When you put it that way. Besides, Mark said, standing and offering her his hand, I've got backup. Backup? Lily. She'll talk them to death about unicorns and whether fish have feelings. They won't stand a chance. As they went inside, Natalie caught sight of herself in the hall mirror. Bruised face, borrowed clothes, no makeup, hair a mess. She looked nothing like the CEO who'd commanded boardrooms and controlled billions. She looked like herself. "You're staring," Mark observed. "I haven't seen myself in years," she said. "Just the image, the projection, the role. And now? Now I see someone who might actually survive this." "You'll do more than survive," Mark said with quiet certainty. "You'll thrive. Just not in the way you expected." That night, lying in the narrow bed in the spare room, Natalie listened to the sounds of the house. Mark checking locks, the furnace humming, Lily talking to Mr. Elephant about tomorrow's adventures. Ordinary sounds. Home sounds. Her phone, charged but still off, sat on the nightstand like a portal to another world. Tomorrow she'd have to turn it on, deal with the lawyers, the media, the complete dissolution of her former life. But not tonight. Tonight she was just a woman in a borrowed bed in a stranger's house that felt more like home than anywhere she'd lived in years. Tonight she was learning to breathe without the weight of an empire on her chest. Tonight she was free. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Lily poked her head in. "Can't sleep again." "Daddy's snoring." "He doesn't snore." "Okay, he's not snoring, but I still can't sleep." She climbed into bed without invitation, Mr. Elephant in tow. "Are you sad?" "A little." "About the mean man?" "About a lot of things." "Daddy says it's okay to be sad about a lot of things at once. It means you're processing. That's what he called it when I was sad about Mommy and happy about ice cream at the same time." "Your daddy's very wise." "He reads a lot of books about feelings. He thinks I don't know, but I see them hidden behind the regular books." Lily snuggled closer. "Miss Natalie." "Yes?" "I heard Daddy talking to Mommy's picture tonight. He does that sometimes. He told her about you." Natalie's heart clenched. "What did he say?" "That you needed help, and he was trying to be the kind of person she'd want him to be. Someone who helps." Lily yawned. "But I think he likes you too. The special kind of like." "Lily, it's okay if he does. Mommy would want him to have someone to make him laugh again. He used to laugh more. He seems happy. He's good at seeming, but you make him really." Before Natalie could respond, Lily was asleep, her small body radiating warmth and trust. Natalie lay awake, processing as Lily had said. In 48 hours, her entire world had shifted. She'd lost an empire and found a family, lost her identity and found herself. It should feel like disaster. Instead, it felt like coming home. The morning arrived with a commotion that jolted everyone awake. Car doors slamming, voices raised in authority, the unmistakable sound of expensive shoes on the wooden porch. Natalie sat up, her heart racing, Lily still curled beside her like a small, trusting cat. "Police! Open up!" Mark's footsteps thundered down the stairs. Through the window, Natalie could see 2 police cars and Richard's town car. Her stomach dropped. He'd actually done it. He'd called the police. "What's happening?" Lily asked, rubbing her eyes. "Stay here, sweetheart," Natalie said, but Lily was already following her downstairs. Mark had opened the door to 2 officers and Richard, who stood behind them with a triumphant smile. "Officers," Mark said calmly, "what can I help you with?" "We've received a report of kidnapping and elder abuse," the older officer said, looking uncomfortable. Ms. Natalie Cross is allegedly being held here against her will." "That's ridiculous," Natalie said, stepping into view. "I'm here voluntarily." Richard pushed forward. "She's clearly been coerced. Look at her face. She's been beaten. This man assaulted her and is holding her captive. She's not in her right mind." The younger officer studied Natalie's bruised face with concern. "Ma'am, do you need medical attention? Are you safe?" "The bruises are from him," Natalie said, pointing at Richard. "This man, Richard Blackwood, assaulted me at O'Hare Airport 2 days ago. There are witnesses, video footage. Mark Davis protected me and offered me a safe place to stay." "She's lying," Richard said smoothly. "She's having a mental breakdown." I have documentation from her board of directors expressing concern about her mental state. The older officer sighed. Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification and ask you some questions privately. Of course. They stepped onto the porch, away from Richard and Mark. The officer's demeanor softened once they were alone. Ms. Cross, I've seen enough domestic situations to recognize when someone's being controlled. Are you really here by choice? Completely. Officer, I'm the CEO, former CEO of Cross Pharmaceuticals. Mr. Blackwood was trying to force me into a business arrangement I refused. He assaulted me at the airport. Mr. Davis intervened and offered me shelter. That's all. And you're free to leave whenever you want. Yes. Do you want to press charges against Mr. Blackwood for the assault? Natalie thought about it. Yes. Yes, I do. The officer nodded. We'll need you to come to the station to file a report. But ma'am, I have to ask, is there any truth to his claim about your mental state? I'm saner than I've been in years, officer. Walking away from a toxic situation isn't insanity. It's self-preservation. When they returned to the doorway, Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You're going to believe her? She's thrown away billions of dollars. No sane person does that. Money isn't evidence of sanity, Mr. Blackwood, the older officer said dryly. Ms. Cross, would you like to file that assault report now? This is a mistake, Richard hissed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neither do you, Mark said quietly. He'd been silent throughout, but now he stepped forward. You come to my home, threaten my family, try to use the police as your personal enforcement. That ends now. Your family? Richard laughed harshly. She's not your family. She's a billionaire slumming it for attention. That's when Lily stepped out from behind Mark, still in her dinosaur pajamas, Mr. Elephant dragging on the ground. She is to our family, Lily announced with 6-year-old certainty. Family isn't about blood or money or any of that stuff. It's about who shows up. Miss Natalie showed up. The younger officer tried to hide a smile. Richard looked at the child like she was speaking a foreign language. Officers, he said, trying to regain control. Surely you can see. What I see, the older officer interrupted, is a woman with visible injuries who says you caused them. What I see is you making false reports to law enforcement. What I see is harassment. Mr. Blackwood, I suggest you leave now, or you'll be coming to the station too, in handcuffs. Richard's jaw worked furiously. This isn't over. Yes, Natalie said firmly. It is. After Richard left and Natalie had given her statement to the police promising to come to the station later to file formal charges, the house felt oddly quiet. Lily had gone back to bed declaring the whole thing boring grown-up stuff. Mark made coffee while Natalie sat at the kitchen table, her hands shaking slightly. You okay? He asked, setting a mug in front of her. I just declared war on one of the most powerful men in corporate America. No, you declared independence. There's a difference. Her phone, which she'd finally turned on, showed 127 missed calls, 89 text messages, and 42 emails marked urgent. She scrolled through them without reading, then did something she'd never done before. She deleted them all without looking. That felt good, she admitted. Deleting without reading is severely underrated, Mark agreed. I do it with bills sometimes. They always send another one anyway. Despite everything, she laughed. Your approach to financial management is questionable, says the woman who just walked away from billions. Fair point. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the ordinary beauty of the space. The coffee-stained recipe cards held by magnets, the plant on the windowsill that needed water, the crayon marks on the table that hadn't quite been scrubbed away. I should find somewhere else to stay, Natalie said suddenly. Richard knows where you live now. He'll make your life hell. Let him try. Mark, you don't understand. He has lawyers, connections, influence, and I have friends, neighbors, a community. You'd be surprised how little corporate influence matters when Mrs. Chen from next door is on your side. She makes cookies for the entire police precinct. As if summoned, there was a knock at the door. Mark opened it to find Mrs. Chen herself, a tiny Korean woman in her 70s holding a covered dish. I heard commotion, she said in accented English, pushing past Mark without invitation. Police before breakfast is never good. She spotted Natalie and her eyes narrowed at the bruises. Who did this? It's handled, Mrs. Chen, Mark said. Is it? She set down her dish, kimchi fried rice, from the smell, and took Natalie's face in her weathered hands, examining the bruises with the practiced eye of someone who'd seen too much violence in her lifetime. This is not handled. This is survived. Different thing. Mrs. Chen fled North Korea in the 60s, Mark explained. She doesn't have much patience for bullies. Bullies are same everywhere, Mrs. Chen said. Big voice, small soul. You stay here. Mark is good boy. His Sarah was my friend. She would want him to help you. I don't want to bring trouble. Mrs. Chen waved dismissively. Trouble comes anyway. Better to face with friends than alone. She patted Natalie's cheek gently. You eat. Too skinny. Stress makes the body eat itself. After she left, Mark heated up the fried rice. Fair warning, the entire neighborhood will know about this by noon. Mrs. Chen is better than social media for spreading news. Is that good or bad? Depends. Can you handle every grandmother in a 5-block radius trying to feed you? The day passed in a strange mixture of normalcy and surrealism. Natalie went with Mark to pick up Lily from school, helped with homework about butterflies, made spaghetti for dinner. But her phone rang constantly with calls from reporters who'd somehow gotten her personal number. The assault charges had leaked, and the media was having a field day with the story of the billionaire CEO who'd disappeared. Daddy, there's people with cameras outside, Lily announced, peering through the living room curtains. Mark looked out and cursed under his breath. 3 news vans had parked across the street, and reporters were setting up on the sidewalk. Hey, Lily, want to have a camp out in the basement tonight? He asked with forced cheer. We can make a fort. Why? Because forts are fun. But why tonight specifically? Mark looked at Natalie helplessly. She knelt down to Lily's level. Because there are people outside who want to talk about grown-up things, and we need privacy. It's like when you want to keep a secret. Sometimes you need a special place. Lily considered this. Will there be popcorn in the fort? Absolutely. Then okay. They spent the evening in the basement, which Mark had partially finished as a playroom. Lily directed the fort construction with the seriousness of an architect, using every blanket and pillow in the house. They ate popcorn and told stories and pretended the world above didn't exist. But after Lily fell asleep, curled between them like she'd always belonged there, reality crept back in. This is insane, Natalie whispered. Your life was normal before I showed up. Normal is overrated, Mark whispered back. Besides, my life hasn't been normal since Sarah died. It's been managed, controlled, safe. Maybe too safe. What do you mean? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, after Sarah died, I shut down everything except what Lily needed. No risks, no changes, no chances for anything to hurt us again. But that's not living. That's just existing. And now? Now my house is surrounded by reporters. There's a billionaire in my blanket fort, and my daughter is happier than she's been in months because she has someone new to take care of. He turned to look at her in the dim light. Sometimes chaos is what we need to remember we're alive. This is more than chaos. This is... Her phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Turn on Channel 7, now. Mark found a small TV in the corner, keeping the volume low. Richard's face filled the screen, standing outside Cross Pharmaceuticals' headquarters, looking every inch the concerned executive. Deeply worried about Miss Cross's mental state, he was saying. She suffered a complete breakdown, abandoned her responsibilities, and is currently being manipulated by unknown parties. The board has no choice but to remove her as CEO for the good of the company and our shareholders. That bastard, Natalie breathed, but the reporter wasn't buying it. Mr. Blackwood, what do you say to allegations that you physically assaulted Ms. Cross at O'Hare Airport? We've obtained security footage that appears to show Richard's composure cracked. That's taken completely out of context. The screen cut to grainy but clear footage of Richard striking Natalie, her falling to her knees, Mark stepping in. The anchor's voice narrated, Chicago police confirm that assault charges have been filed against Richard Blackwood, interim CEO of Cross Pharmaceuticals. Meanwhile, questions arise about the hostile takeover of the company and allegations of forced marriage arrangements with foreign investors. Mark turned off the TV. Well, that's something. He'll spin it. He always does. Maybe. But the truth has a way of outlasting spin. Natalie's phone rang. Her personal lawyer. Ms. Cross, I'm sorry to call so late, but you need to know the board held an emergency vote. You've been officially removed as CEO. I expected that. But here's the interesting part. 3 board members voted against it and have since resigned in protest. They're willing to testify that Richard has been planning this coup for months, long before your father's death. Natalie sat up straighter. What? There's more. We've been contacted by someone from the Sakamoto Corporation. They're claiming Richard misrepresented the marriage arrangement, that they were told you were fully consenting. They're pulling out of all negotiations and considering legal action against him for fraud. After she hung up, Natalie relayed the information to Mark. Sounds like Richard's empire is the one crumbling, he observed. It doesn't matter. The damage is done. The company will probably collapse, jobs will be lost. Hey, Mark touched her shoulder gently. You can't save everyone. You said that yourself. I know, but no buts. You made a choice to save yourself. That's not selfish. That's necessary. Lily stirred between them, mumbling something about butterflies. They both fell silent, watching her sleep. She's incredible, Natalie whispered. She's been through more than any kid should have to. But she chose joy anyway. Every day she chooses it. How? I don't know. Grace, maybe. Or just the wisdom of being 6 and knowing that tomorrow always comes with new possibilities. The basement was warm and close, filled with the sound of Lily's breathing and the distant murmur of reporters outside. Natalie found herself studying Mark's profile in the dim light, the strong jaw, the lines around his eyes that spoke of both laughter and pain, the careful way he adjusted the blanket around his daughter. What? He asked, catching her staring. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. My father always said there were wolves and sheep in the world, predators and prey. You're neither. What am I then? A shepherd, maybe. Someone who protects without consuming. That's poetic for a CEO. Former CEO, current Blanket Fort resident. He smiled, and something in her chest fluttered, a feeling she'd thought her father had trained out of her long ago. Mark, she started, then stopped. What could she say? That in 3 days he'd shown her more kindness than she'd experienced in years? That his daughter had taught her more about resilience than any business school? That this basement fort felt more real than any boardroom? I know, he said quietly. It's too fast, too strange, too everything. But Natalie, life doesn't wait for perfect timing. Sarah taught me that. We had 2 years when we should have had 50. But those 2 years were worth everything because we didn't waste them waiting for someday. What are you saying? I'm saying that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll be here. Not because you're rich or powerful or any of that, but because Lily already considers you family and she's never wrong about people. And you? He was quiet for a moment. I haven't felt anything but grief and responsibility for 3 years. Then you showed up, broken and brave, and suddenly I remembered that hearts can do more than just survive. Before Natalie could respond, Lily sat up suddenly, fully awake. The reporters are still there, she announced, as if she'd been monitoring them in her sleep. Yeah, kiddo, they'll probably be there tomorrow too. That's dumb. Don't they have homes? They're doing their jobs. Lily considered this. Their jobs are dumb. She looked at Natalie. Are they here because of you? Yes, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. You're famous. That's cool. Like, are you more famous than the president? No, definitely not. More famous than Taylor Swift? Not even close. Oh, well, still cool, I guess. Lily snuggled back down between them. Can we live in the fort forever? Forts aren't forever, baby, Mark said gently. But the feeling is, Lily said with certainty, the fort feeling. Safe and together and warm. That's forever, right? Natalie felt tears prick her eyes. Yes, she whispered. That's forever. The next morning came too soon, with sunlight streaming through the basement windows and the sound of even more commotion outside. Mark went up first to assess the situation, returning with a grim expression. It's a circus out there, reporters, photographers, and… Natalie, your stepbrother is on the front porch. Nathan stood outside looking haggard, his usual polish replaced by stubble and wrinkled clothes. Jesus, Nat, he said when she opened the door. I've been calling for hours. My phone was off. Can I come in? The vultures are circling. Once inside, Nathan collapsed on the couch. It's chaos. Richard's been arrested for assault. The board is in full panic. 3 major investors have pulled out. The stock price has dropped 40%. Nathan? But here's the thing. Some of the employees are organizing. They're protesting Richard's takeover, demanding new leadership. They want you back. I'm not going back. I know. But Nat, you could recommend someone. Help transition. Save some of what Dad built. She thought about it, about the researchers who dedicated their lives to finding cures, the employees who'd worked honestly despite the corruption at the top. There's Dr. Martinez, she said finally. She runs our research division. She's brilliant, ethical, and the employees trust her. Would she take it? If the board gave her real power to reform things? Maybe. Nathan nodded, already pulling out his phone. I'll make some calls. I still have influence with some board members. While Nathan worked his phone in the kitchen, Natalie found Lily in the living room, carefully drawing at her little table, deliberately ignoring the chaos outside. What are you drawing? Our family, Lily said, showing her the picture. There were 4 figures, Lily, Mark, Natalie, and a figure surrounded by clouds. That's Mommy, watching from heaven. I think she's happy. Why? Because Daddy's smiling again. See? She pointed to the figure of Mark in her drawing, his mouth a pronounced upward curve. He hasn't smiled like that in forever. Mark appeared in the doorway, and Lily immediately showed him the picture. Something passed over his face, pain, joy, acceptance, all at once. It's perfect, kiddo, he said softly. The doorbell rang, and Mark sighed. If that's another reporter, but it wasn't. It was Tom from the workshop, along with Jerome and Miguel. Behind them stood Mrs. Chen and what looked like half the neighborhood. Heard you were having a reporter problem, Tom said with a grin. Thought you might need some backup. What are you, Community meeting, Mrs. Chen announced, on your front lawn about neighborhood beautification project. Very important, very loud. Reporters hate competition. Within minutes, the neighbors had set up tables and chairs on Mark's lawn, effectively creating a barrier between the house and the media. Someone brought a speaker and played music. Kids ran around playing tag. Mrs. Chen directed everything like a general, occasionally glaring at reporters who got too close. Your neighbors are amazing, Natalie said to Mark, watching from the window. They're protective. This is a real neighborhood, where people know each other. We've all been through stuff. We help. Nathan joined them at the window. This is surreal. A bunch of regular people just pushed back the media. Regular people can do extraordinary things when they work together, Mark said. Your corporate world could learn from that. Nathan looked at him with new interest. You're not what I expected. Seems to be the consensus. You were military? Yeah. Special forces, from what Nat told me. Mark just nodded. And now you build houses. I rebuild lives, Mark corrected. The houses are just the structure. Nathan studied him for a long moment. You love my sister. It wasn't a question, but Mark answered anyway. I've known her for 3 days. That's not an answer. Yeah, Mark said quietly, glancing at Natalie. I think I do. Or will. Or already started to. It's complicated. Love always is. Nathan turned to Natalie. Dr. Martinez is interested, but wants to talk to you first. She's flying in tomorrow. I'll meet with her. And Nat? Richard's lawyer called me. He wants to make a deal. Drop the charges and he'll sign over Mom's foundation to you, free and clear. No deals, Natalie said firmly. He assaulted me. He terrorized Mark and Lily. He faces consequences. That's my sister, Nathan said with something like pride. The day wore on with the strange carnival atmosphere continuing outside. Around dinner time, Tom fired up Mark's grill and started making burgers for everyone. The reporters, realizing they weren't getting through the human wall, began to pack up one by one. As evening fell, Natalie found herself in the backyard with Mark, watching Lily play with the other neighborhood kids. It was startlingly normal, startlingly perfect. "I haven't felt this peaceful since I was a child," she admitted. "Peace isn't a place," Mark said. "It's a choice. You choose it every day, sometimes every minute." "Is that what you did after Sarah?" "Eventually. First, I chose survival, then function, then, slowly, peace. And now." "Now?" He looked at her, his green eyes warm in the fading light. "Now I'm choosing more." "Mark, I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But Natalie, I've learned that life is short and unpredictable, and the only real mistake is not trying." "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "I know how to negotiate billion-dollar deals, how to destroy competitors, how to build empires. But this, family, love, I'm completely lost." "Good. Being lost means you get to find yourself." Lily ran over, grass stains on her dinosaur t-shirt, face flushed with joy. "Miss Natalie, Mrs. Rodriguez says you're staying forever. Is that true?" Natalie looked at Mark, then at Lily, then at this backyard in this ordinary neighborhood where she'd found something extraordinary. "I'm staying for now," she said carefully. "Is that okay?" "More than okay." Lily hugged her fiercely. "Now is all we get anyway. Daddy says yesterday is gone and tomorrow isn't promised, so now is the only thing that's real." "Your daddy's very wise." "The wisest, except about vegetables. He thinks they're food." As Lily ran back to play, Mark moved closer to Natalie, not quite touching but near enough that she could feel his warmth. "For now is enough," he said softly. "We can figure out the rest as we go." "What if Richard comes back? What if the media doesn't give up? What if everything works out?" Mark countered. "What if you build something better than what you lost? What if this is exactly where you're supposed to be?" "You really believe that?" "I believe that Sarah got sick for a reason I'll never understand, but that it led me to become who I am. I believe Lily lost her mother but gained a strength most people never find. And I believe you didn't accidentally end up at that gate in O'Hare. Sometimes the universe conspires to put people where they need to be. That's very philosophical for a construction worker. I read a lot during Lily's piano lessons. Philosophy, poetry, whatever's in the waiting room. Nathan appeared in the back door. "Nat? Dr. Martinez wants to video call. She has questions about the company structure." "Go," Mark said. "Save what can be saved. Build what needs building." As Natalie walked inside, she heard Lily call out, "Daddy, push me on the swing." She turned to watch Mark walk to his daughter, his strong hands gentle as he helped her onto the swing. This was wealth, she thought. This was power. This was everything her father had never understood. The call with Dr. Martinez went better than expected. The woman was brilliant, passionate about the actual mission of developing life-saving drugs, and had ideas for restructuring that would prioritize research over profit. "But I need to know," Dr. Martinez said through the screen. "Why are you really walking away?" "The Natalie Cross I knew would never give up power." "The Natalie Cross you knew was dying," Natalie replied honestly. "Slowly, maybe, but dying all the same. I chose to live instead." "And you're really okay with me taking over? No interference, no back-channel manipulation?" "I'm really okay. In fact, I'm better than okay. I'm free." After the call, Natalie found Nathan still in the kitchen, working through emails on his laptop. "She'll be good," he said without looking up. "Better than either of us would have been. Dad would hate this. Dad would hate a lot of things about where we've ended up." Nathan closed his laptop and looked at her. "But Mom wouldn't. You know what I remembered yesterday? Her reading to us in that window seat in the Vermont house before she got sick. She'd do voices for all the characters. I remember. That house has been sitting empty for 20 years, Nat. Maybe it's time someone lived in it again. Maybe." Nathan stood to leave, then paused. "The construction guy, Mark. He's good for you. We barely know each other. So? You knew Richard for years, and look how that turned out. Sometimes strangers see us more clearly than anyone. After Nathan left, the house grew quiet. The neighbors had dispersed, the reporters were gone, and something like normal had returned. Natalie helped Mark clean up from the impromptu block party while Lily got ready for bed. "Your neighbors are incredible," she said, drying dishes while he washed. "They're just people who remember what matters." Which is showing up, being present, choosing community over isolation. He handed her another plate. "You did that today. Helped save your company without needing to run it. That takes strength." Or weakness. "Maybe I'm just running away." Mark stopped washing and turned to her, suds still on his hands. "Running away would have been disappearing without a trace. What you're doing is walking towards something new. There's a huge difference." Before she could respond, Lily appeared in her pajamas. "Story time!" They followed her upstairs, where she insisted Natalie sit on one side of her bed and Mark on the other. She handed Natalie a worn book, The Velveteen Rabbit. "This was Mommy's favorite," Lily explained. She said it was about becoming real. Natalie read while Lily snuggled against her, and Mark watched them both with an expression that made her voice catch. The story of toys becoming real through being loved felt too appropriate, too close to her own transformation. When Lily was asleep, they stood in the hallway, neither quite ready to separate. "Thank you," Natalie said, "for everything. For saving me at the airport, for taking me in, for—" Mark kissed her. It was gentle, uncertain, a question more than a statement. She answered by kissing him back, her hands finding his shoulders, his arms wrapping around her waist. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "Too fast?" he asked. "Everything about this is too fast," she replied. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe I've been moving too slowly my whole life, thinking I had forever to figure out how to be happy. And now? Now I know better. Now I know that happiness isn't a destination you reach after achieving everything else. It's a choice you make in the middle of the chaos. So you're choosing?" "I'm choosing." They stood there in the dim hallway, holding each other, while the house settled around them with comfortable creaks and sighs. Somewhere in the walls, pipes hummed. Outside, a dog barked. The ordinary symphony of a life being lived. "Stay," Mark said softly. "Not just for tonight," the word implied. "Not just for now. Stay for the possibility of what could be." "Okay," Natalie whispered. That night, she didn't sleep in the spare room. She lay beside Mark in his bed, not making love, not yet, but holding each other like survivors of the same storm. He told her about Sarah's last days, how she'd made him promise to find joy again. She told him about her mother's death, how her father had forbidden grief, demanding strength instead. "We're both haunted," Mark said into the darkness. "Maybe that's why we recognize each other. Or maybe we're both ready to stop being ghosts." In the morning, Natalie woke to find Lily had crawled into bed between them, Mr. Elephant squashed beneath her arm. "Family snuggle," Lily announced sleepily. "The best kind of morning." And it was. Despite everything waiting outside, lawyers and media and the collapse of an empire, inside this small bedroom in this modest house, Natalie had found something worth more than all the money she'd walked away from. She'd found home. The weeks that followed blurred together in a rhythm Natalie had never known. Breakfast chaos with Lily, demanding different cereals every day, walks to school where the little girl insisted on jumping over every crack in the sidewalk, afternoons at the women's shelter where Natalie discovered she had a gift for grant writing, evenings in Mark's workshop learning the satisfaction of creating something with her own hands. But the outside world hadn't forgotten about her. The trial date for Richard's assault charges was set, and the media attention intensified rather than faded. Every morning brought new photographers, new headlines, new attempts to paint her as either a martyr or a madwoman. "Miss Natalie, you're in the newspaper again," Lily announced one morning, spreading the Chicago Tribune across the breakfast table. "They used a bad picture, though. Your hair looks weird." Natalie glanced at the headline, "Fallen CEO Hides in Blue-Collar Romance." The article speculated about her mental state, her relationship with Mark, and whether she was being manipulated or had simply snapped under pressure. "They don't know anything about us," Mark said, reading over her shoulder. Let them guess. But it wasn't that simple. The attention was affecting everything. Lily had been moved to a different entrance at school to avoid photographers. Mark's clients were being harassed for comments, and the women's shelter had been forced to hire security. This isn't sustainable, Natalie said that evening as they watched Lily practice piano, her small fingers stumbling over scales. I'm disrupting everyone's lives. You're enriching them, Mark corrected. Ask anyone in this neighborhood if they'd rather go back to before you came. But Lily is thriving. Look at her. Lily had abandoned scales and was now improvising something that sounded like a cross between Twinkle Twinkle and a funeral march, singing nonsense words with complete conviction. She's terrible at piano, Natalie observed fondly. The worst, Mark agreed, but she loves it. That's what matters. That night after Lily was asleep, they sat on the porch despite the cold November air. Mark had built a fire in the small fire pit, and they huddled under a blanket, watching flames dance. I've been thinking about the Vermont house, Natalie said suddenly. Mark tensed slightly. Oh. It's just sitting there, empty. Mom loved that house. She said it was where she could breathe. Are you thinking of going there? I'm thinking of us going there. All three of us. Just for a while, until the trial is over and the media finds something else to obsess about. Mark was quiet for a long moment. That's a big step. Everything we've done has been a big step. You kissed me after knowing me for 4 days. 3.5, he corrected with a slight smile. And you kissed me back. I did. She turned to face him fully. Mark, I know this is fast and crazy and completely illogical, but nothing about my old life was logical either. And look where that got me. Maybe it's time to try illogical. What about Lily's school? There are schools in Vermont. Good ones. And she could have space to run, trees to climb, a real childhood. My business, you could start over there. Vermont needs builders too. Or you could do something completely different. When's the last time you chose something just because you wanted it, not because you had to? Mark stared into the fire, and she could see him wrestling with possibilities, responsibilities, the weight of 3 years of carefully controlled stability. Sarah would have loved this, he said finally, the spontaneity of it. She always said I was too careful, too planned. What do you say? I say Lily's going to lose her mind with excitement. She's been asking if we can get a dog. This would pretty much guarantee we'd have to. Is that a yes? Instead of answering, Mark went inside and came back with his laptop. Show me this house. She pulled up photos from the real estate listing that had been maintained for 2 decades. The Victorian farmhouse sat on 40 acres, with views of mountains and a pond that froze in winter for skating. Jesus, Mark breathed. It's perfect. It needs work. It's been maintained but not updated. The kitchen is from the 80s, the heating system is ancient, and I'm pretty sure there are families of raccoons in the attic. So it's a project, a massive project. I like projects. He closed the laptop and looked at her. But Natalie, if we do this, when we do this, it can't be about running away. It has to be about running toward. Toward what? A life. A real one. Not a temporary escape or a hideout, but a choice to build something together. Is that what you want? To build something with me? I've wanted it since you stood up to Richard in my living room, he admitted. Maybe even since the airport. You were so broken and so strong at the same time. I thought, this is someone who understands that life can shatter you, and you can still choose to keep going. I'm in love with you, Natalie said suddenly, the words surprising her as much as him. I know it's too soon and too much, but I am. You and Lily both. Is that crazy? Completely, Mark said, pulling her closer. But Sarah fell in love with me in a week. Sometimes you just know. And you? Do you know? He kissed her instead of answering, deep and certain, a promise without words. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. We should tell Lily in the morning, he said. Tell her what exactly? That we're going on an adventure. She'll fill in the rest with her imagination. But they didn't have to wait until morning. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleepy eyes, Mr. Elephant dragging behind her. I had a dream about Mommy, she announced, climbing into Mark's lap. She said we're going somewhere with trees. Mark and Natalie exchanged glances over her head. What else did she say? Mark asked carefully. That Miss Natalie is our person now, and that it's okay to be happy. Lily yawned enormously. Also that I should get a dog, a big one. Your subconscious is very specific, Natalie observed. It's not my sub whatever, Lily said with dignity. It's Mommy. She visits sometimes in dreams. Not scary, just to check in. Mark's eyes glistened in the firelight. And she said it's okay to be happy? She said it's more than okay. She said it's the whole point. Lily snuggled deeper into his chest. Are we going somewhere with trees? Maybe, Mark said. Would you like that? Yes. Can we go tomorrow? Not tomorrow, but soon. We have to pack and plan and get a dog. We'll see about the dog. That means yes, Lily told Natalie confidentially. When Daddy says we'll see, it always means yes eventually. The next morning brought a call from Nathan with unexpected news. Richard had a heart attack, he said without preamble. He's in intensive care. His lawyer wants to talk about a plea deal. Natalie felt nothing at first, then a strange mix of pity and relief. Is he going to survive? Probably. But he's done. The board has completely removed him, and there's talk of criminal charges beyond the assault. Apparently he'd been embezzling for years, hiding it in the merger documents. God. Yeah, karma's a bitch with good timing. Nathan paused. The media is going to go even crazier with this. You might want to... We're leaving, Natalie said. Going to Mom's house in Vermont for a while. We? Mark, Lily, and me. That's fast. Everything about this has been fast, but Nathan, I've been dying slowly for years. Now I'm finally living quickly. What about the trial? I'll come back for it if it happens. But with Richard in the hospital and bigger charges pending, the assault might be the least of his problems. And Mark's okay with uprooting his whole life? We're not uprooting. We're replanting. Nathan laughed, actually laughed. Mom would love this. You running off to Vermont with a construction worker and his kid. It's like a romance novel she would have hidden from Dad. Come visit, Natalie said impulsively. When we're settled. Come for Christmas. I haven't had a real Christmas in years. Then it's time. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Mark arranged for Tom to take over his current projects, promising to return if needed. The crew threw an impromptu goodbye party at the workshop, with Jerome making a speech about how the boss finally found someone who could handle his stubbornness, and Miguel presenting Lily with a tiny tool belt for Vermont adventures. Mrs. Chen cried when they told her, then immediately began packing food for their journey. Vermont is cold, she said, as if they didn't know. You need soup. And kimchi. Kimchi fixes everything. The hardest part was Lily's school. She'd made friends, had routines, felt safe there. But when they explained about the house with land and trees and room for a dog, her eyes went wide with possibility. Can I have a treehouse? She asked. We can build one together, Mark promised. And a swing? Multiple swings. And chickens? Let's start with the dog and see how it goes. On their last night in Chicago, they had dinner with the neighbors. Mrs. Chen had organized it, of course, commandeering Mark's backyard for what she called proper goodbye. The November cold was held at bay by portable heaters and warm food. Everyone brought something, casseroles, pies, homemade bread, stories of how Mark had helped them over the years. He fixed my roof when my husband died, Mrs. Rodriguez said. Wouldn't take payment. Said neighbors help neighbors. Built a ramp for my wheelchair, Mr. Kim added. Made it look like art, not just necessity. Natalie listened to story after story of quiet kindness, of a man who'd channeled his grief into service and felt her love for Mark deepen into something beyond romance. This was a good man, genuinely good, the kind her father had said didn't exist in the real world. You take care of him, Mrs. Chen whispered to her as the evening wound down. He's been alone too long, not just without wife, alone inside. You brought him back. He saved me first, No, the old woman said firmly. You saved each other. That's how the best love works. That night, in the empty house with boxes stacked everywhere, they made love for the first time. It was tender and urgent, careful and passionate. Two people who'd been broken by life choosing to become whole together. After, they lay entwined, listening to Lily snoring softly down the hall. No regrets? Mark asked. None. You? Only that we didn't meet sooner. We met exactly when we were supposed to, Natalie said. Any sooner and I wouldn't have been ready. I would have been too caught up in my father's world to see you. And I would have been too deep in grief to let you in. So we met at the perfect broken moment. The perfect broken moment, Mark agreed. I like that. They left early the next morning, Lily bouncing with excitement in the back seat, the truck loaded with their essentials. The rest would be shipped later. As they drove out of the neighborhood, Natalie saw Mrs. Chen standing on her porch, waving. Tom and his crew were outside the workshop, raising coffee cups in salute. The city that had sheltered her when she fell was saying goodbye. You okay? Mark asked, reaching over to take her hand. More than okay. Even though you're leaving everything behind. I'm not leaving everything. I'm taking what matters. Lily piped up from the back. And we're going toward what's next. That's what Daddy said. We're going toward our new life. The drive to Vermont took 2 days, with an overnight stop at a motel that Lily declared the best ever, simply because it had a pool. They ate at roadside diners, played car games, sang along to the radio. Normal things, family things. As they crossed into Vermont, the landscape changed. Mountains rising, trees thickening, the sky somehow seeming bigger. Lily pressed her face to the window, trying to see everything at once. It's like a fairy tale, she breathed. The house, when they finally arrived, was both better and worse than Natalie remembered. The structure was solid, Mark confirmed after a careful inspection, but 20 years of minimal habitation had left it feeling hollow, waiting. It needs so much work, Natalie said, standing in the dusty kitchen. It needs life, Mark corrected. That's different from work. Lily had already raced through every room, claiming the one with a window seat as hers. It's perfect, she shouted from upstairs. I can see forever. They spent the first night camping in the living room, sleeping bags on the floor, the fireplace crackling with their first fire. Lily fell asleep between them, mumbling about tree houses and dogs and chickens. What have we done? Natalie whispered, looking around at the cobwebs and outdated wallpaper. Something brave, Mark replied. Something real. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A pickup truck rumbled up the long driveway, and an elderly couple emerged. The Wheelers, they introduced themselves, the nearest neighbors from 2 miles down the road. We knew your mother, Mrs. Wheeler said to Natalie. Lovely woman. We've been keeping an eye on the place, making sure the pipes don't freeze, that sort of thing. Thank you, Natalie said, touched by these strangers' kindness. Town's been waiting for someone to live here again, Mr. Wheeler added, eyeing Mark with approval. You folks planning to stay? Mark and Natalie exchanged glances. We're planning to try, Mark said. Good enough, Mr. Wheeler said. You need anything? You call. That's how it works here. Also, there's a town meeting Tuesday nights. Not required, but recommended if you want to know what's what. After they left, leaving a casserole and fresh eggs, Lily danced around the kitchen. We have neighbors, and they brought food. This place is magic. Over the following weeks, the house began its transformation. Mark worked methodically, fixing the urgent things first. Heating, plumbing, electrical issues that could cause problems. Natalie painted while Lily helped by providing constant commentary and occasional artwork for the walls. The town embraced them cautiously at first, then warmly as they showed they weren't just rich city people playing at country life. Mark joined the volunteer fire department. Natalie began helping with the town's grant applications, her corporate experience suddenly useful in a different way. Lily charmed everyone at the local school, immediately becoming best friends with a girl named Emma, who also believed in fairy houses and talking animals. We did it, Natalie said one evening, standing in their newly functional kitchen while Mark cooked and Lily did homework at the table. We actually did it. Did what? Mark asked. Stirring something that smelled like heaven? Created a life. a real one. We're still creating it, he pointed out, every day. A knock at the door interrupted them. Natalie opened it to find Nathan standing there, looking uncertain and holding an expensive bottle of wine. "You actually came," she said, hugging him. "You actually invited me." He looked around, taking in the comfortable chaos, the warmth, the life. "This is different from what I expected." "Uncle Nathan!" Lily shrieked, though she'd only met him twice. "Come see my room." "I have a reading nook now. Daddy built it." As Nathan was dragged upstairs, Mark moved beside Natalie. "Uncle Nathan?" she decided. "Apparently we're all family now." "All of us?" "Every messy, complicated, beautiful bit of us." That night, with Nathan sleeping in the guest room and Lily finally convinced to go to bed despite the excitement, Natalie stood at the window watching snow begin to fall. Their first Vermont snow. Mark wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Regrets now?" "None. Ever. Even though you're living in a work-in-progress house in the middle of nowhere with a construction worker and his daughter." She turned in his arms. "I'm living in a home we're building together with the man I love and the daughter I already think of as mine. That's not nowhere. That's everything." "Marry me," Mark said suddenly. "What?" "I know it's too soon. I know we should wait, but Natalie, I've learned that life doesn't wait. Sarah taught me that. You taught me that again. So marry me, not today, not tomorrow, but soon, when you're ready, if you ever are." "I'm ready now," she said, surprising herself. "I've been ready since you stood up to Richard in your living room, since Lily offered me unicorn Band-Aids, since you chose to help a stranger when everyone else just watched." "Is that a yes?" "That's an absolutely yes." They were married 3 weeks later, on the winter solstice, in their own backyard with the mountains as witness. Nathan walked Natalie down the makeshift aisle, while Lily threw flower petals with wild abandon. Mrs. Chen had driven all the way from Chicago, declaring that she wouldn't miss it for anything. Tom, Jerome, and Miguel came too, turning it into a reunion of sorts. Dr. Martinez attended, reporting that the company was stabilizing under her leadership, focusing on actual pharmaceutical development rather than profit margins. "You did the right thing walking away," she told Natalie. "It freed all of us to do better." The ceremony was simple, the reception casual, food prepared by neighbors, music from someone's iPhone speaker, dancing in the barn they'd spent a week cleaning out for the occasion. Lily performed a piano piece that bore no resemblance to any known melody, but was played with such joy that everyone applauded thunderously. "I want to make a toast," Nathan said, raising his glass. "To my sister, who had the courage to fall apart so she could rebuild. To Mark, who caught her when she fell. To Lily, who reminds us all that joy is a choice. And to Sarah, who I never met but who clearly raised these two to be ready for each other." There wasn't a dry eye in the barn. Later, as the party continued, Natalie found herself outside in the snow with Lily, who was trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue. "Are you my mom now?" Lily asked suddenly. Natalie's heart clenched. "I'm your Natalie. Is that okay?" "More than okay. I think I can have a mommy in heaven and a Natalie on earth. That's like being double loved." "Double loved. I like that." "Me too." Lily took her hand. "Want to know a secret?" "Always. I think Mommy sent you. Like a present. Not a replacement, but an addition. Like when you think your family is complete, but then someone new comes and you realize there was a space for them all along." Natalie knelt in the snow, not caring about her wedding dress, and hugged Lily tight. "You know what? I think you might be right." "I'm always right about family stuff," Lily said matter-of-factly. "It's my superpower." As they stood to go back inside, a figure appeared at the edge of the property. For a moment, Natalie's heart stopped, thinking it might be Richard or some remnant of her old life come to destroy this new one. But it was just Mr. Wheeler coming to deliver his own wedding gift. A puppy, golden retriever mixed with something indeterminate, all paws and enthusiasm. "Every family needs a dog," he said gruffly. "This one needs a family." Seemed like a match. Lily's scream of joy could probably be heard in Chicago. "What should we name him?" Mark asked, laughing as the puppy immediately tried to eat his shoelaces. Hope, Natalie said without hesitation. We should name him Hope. Hope the dog, Lily giggled. That's silly. The best things usually are, Mark said, catching Natalie's eye. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Natalie stood in her mother's house, now their house, and marveled at the journey. 6 weeks ago, she'd been a CEO with billions at her command and emptiness in her heart. Now she was a wife, a mother figure, a community member, a woman with paint under her fingernails and love in every corner of her life. Thank you, she whispered to whatever force had orchestrated this. Fate, chance, Sarah's spirit, her mother's, or just the beautiful chaos of life itself. For what? Mark asked, coming up beside her. For catching me when I fell. Thank you for being brave enough to fall. Thank you both for talking too much when people are trying to sleep, Lily called from upstairs, and they laughed. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering the world in fresh white, making everything new. Inside, their chosen family settled into their first night as official, legal, real. The puppy snored on Lily's bed despite rules about dogs and furniture. Nathan stayed up late fixing the ancient coffee maker with surprising skill. Mark and Natalie held each other in their room with its drafty windows and creaking floors, perfect in its imperfection. So this is happiness? Natalie murmured against Mark's chest. This is happiness, he confirmed. Messy and complicated and absolutely real. I love our life. I love our life too. Somewhere in the walls, probably the attic, something scurried, those raccoons they'd have to deal with eventually. The furnace made a concerning noise they'd need to investigate. The kitchen faucet dripped with rhythmic persistence. But wrapped in Mark's arms, listening to Lily singing to the puppy, knowing Nathan was downstairs probably judging their coffee maker choices, Natalie felt wealthier than she'd ever been as CEO. This wasn't the life her father had planned for her. It wasn't the life she'd planned for herself. It was better. It was chosen. It was theirs. And in the morning, when Lily burst in with the puppy and announced that Hope had eaten one of Mark's work boots and was anyone going to do anything about it, when Nathan emerged looking for decent coffee and declaring Vermont aggressively rustic, when Mark started making pancakes while discussing plans to renovate the barn into a workshop, when Mrs. Chen called to check in and ended up video chatting with Lily for 20 minutes about the puppy, Natalie knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. Not because it made sense, but because love rarely did. Hey, Mark said, catching her staring at him with what was probably a dopey smile. You okay? More than okay, she said, stealing a bite of pancake batter despite his protests. I'm home. Yes, he said, kissing her while Lily made exaggerated gagging noises, and Nathan muttered about newlyweds and Hope barked at absolutely nothing. You're home! And she was.